Welcome to Life and Love in the Q, a podcast for the LGBTQIA2S+ community, those who support them, and those who just want to learn more.
Together we share the stories and the science of the space and grace to live life in full color.
I'm Jillian Abby, proud lesbian and mother, Hay House author, queer blogger, and TikTok something or other.
And I'm Treisha Peterson. I'm an LGBTQ ally, proud mom of 6, professor and researcher of identity and the social narratives that impact the way we live and love.
So open your mind, open your heart, and welcome to Life and Love in the Q.
Good morning, Jill. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Treisha?
I am so good. I've been thinking about my goals for 2023, and I was actually thinking about you, and I wondered, what is your relationship with New Year's resolutions and goals at the beginning of the year?
That is a great question. I do not like New Year's resolutions. I used to set them. I used to be very goal-oriented and would create the most unrealistic long lists of all the amazing things I was going to accomplish for the year. I gave up on that about 2 years ago. I was so overwhelmed. I'm like, I'm over this. My resolution is to not make any more resolutions.
Ooh. So prior to the past 2 years, you did set New Year's resolutions, but you made them really challenging on yourself?
Definitely.
Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I struggle with routine anyways to begin with. My mind is kind of like a volcano of ideas all the time. So even just getting me to stick with a routine for one day is really challenging. So yeah, asking me to set something for 365 days, whether that's exercise, whether that is folding my underwear like Marie Kondo, it's not going to happen for very long.
Oh, I love that.
What about you, though?
You know, I have a funny relationship with New Year's resolutions, but I'm laughing kind of at the fact that you're saying that it was that routine, because I wonder how many people try to set New Year's resolutions based on completely changing just their energetic flow through life. Oh, I'm going to wake up earlier and I'm going to go to the gym. Like,
I am not that person.
Like, why do we think that we're actually going to succeed if we throw everything about ourselves that is stable in the trash? So
right.
That's an interesting question, but I have a funny relationship with New Year's resolutions because I have never set them in January. So when the rest of the world on January 1st is talking about all these amazing things that they're going to do in the new year, I've always had my New Year's resolutions set in usually the middle of February is when I have traditionally been able to put my New Year's resolutions onto paper. I think it's so funny that we try to change kind of what I just said. We try to change our flow of life after this 6-week period of holidays that has literally exhausted us.
Right. Like we can go to bed on December 31st as one person and January 1st, we wake up as a new, fresh baby that can suddenly accomplish all these things we could never accomplish before.
Yeah, but especially, we go through Thanksgiving and then we immediately transition to the holidays. And then we have all of these family things that we do. We spend more money.
Oh, yes.
Between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day, we go to more parties than we do throughout the entire year during that time period. So really, we all go into a new year exhausted. It seems like the easiest way to set ourselves up for failure is to try to change when we are so exhausted. Like, doesn't everybody kind of want to start eating healthier after they've spent a full month of eating sugar because of the holidays? Like I
think so. I'm like, I should throw some broccoli in here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just always seemed really strange to me. So
yeah,
I've always started them later.
I love that because also I think that is a key strategy to beat the statistics that say that 80%, okay, so this is from US News and World Report. They estimate that 80% of people who make New Year's resolutions fail on them. And I hate that word, but they fail on their resolution by February. 4 weeks. That's all we got. And meanwhile, you're like, now I'm going to start. So somebody's like, are you sticking to your resolution? You're like, of course I am. And I maybe make it till March. Just kidding. I bet you have a better success rate. And I bet you're going to tell us why and how and all the things.
Well, it was a really, really good strategy for me for a long time. And I will say that there have been many years that I've literally blown my own mind with what I can accomplish in a year when I have delayed those New Year's resolutions into February. there's been a couple of years, I've fallen into the social narrative that I should be doing it in January. And those are the years that I tend to fail on my New Year's resolutions, or I give up, or I reframe them. Because like I just said, if you've spent the whole month of December going to parties and eating sugar and eating candies and cookies, I wait for the holidays because they have the best desserts during the holiday season in my mind. So obviously you kind of want to head back into eating healthy. But if you set this standard that's so far outside of your comfort zone, then in my mind, you're going to resist it and you're going to buck against it. But you can reframe things without it being failure. So that's, to me, January has always given me a really good time to look at what's real that I want to change in my life, or that I want to improve, or that I want to expand in. And then by February, I feel really, really good about what's working for me and what's not. So that's kind of been my past.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, so what do you do during January then? Or do you not really do anything? You're just trying to settle back into what feels good. And
that's exactly, I settle back into my pre-holiday activity, because that's when I know what really needs to be improved. I had to give up on New Year's resolutions. So I've always set a one little word, and I know we'll talk a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. And I've done that probably for maybe 15 to 20 years. Since I discovered yoga, I've been setting a one little word. So
you did it pre-social media of everyone saying, what's your one little word?
Yes, I did it pre-social media, and I kept it quiet. So, and this year I'm actually not sharing my word with anybody.
It's cheese.
Yeah, I'm keeping it to myself this year, but I'm also doing something different this year. And I'm making sure that the one little word that I choose, that I know it's direct opposite. So if I'm going to choose hope for my one little word, then I'm also going to leave space for fear. I'm excited to see how it works this in 2023. I've never done that. So I've always set a one little word, and then I've set New Year's resolutions, but I set New Year's resolutions also really different. But in 2015 was my first year that I set New Year's resolutions, and I really struggled with what I had decided. It was a year that our family was really, really struggling. And I got to the end of the year, and I normally do like a self-reflection, and how did I do? What changed? What got better? What stayed the same? And I got to the end of the year, and I wrote in my journal, I didn't do this, but I did develop deeper relationships with my children. I didn't do this, but I felt like I saved our family, or we saved our family, or we got closer through all of the challenges. So it was really looking at the growth. But if I had judged the success of that year on my goals, I would have been a failure. So it was an interesting experience for me to realize, okay, I didn't accomplish X, Y, and Z goals, but in February, I could never have imagined some of the things our family was going to face.
Yeah.
But what I thought was interesting is I kept trying. So in 2016, I did the same thing and just could not get my goals to work. And again, it happened in 2017. So I had a couple of years that I kept trying to go back to this idea of New Year's resolutions the way they'd always worked for me. Mm-hmm. And the challenges of our family life were just so dynamic that I could never really get my feet underneath me again. And so that's kind of what I wanted to chat about today. Is we can talk about New Year's resolutions until we're blue in the face, but what about when the only thing that you can accomplish is literally making it through day by day? How do we measure our level of success and our level of satisfaction if the social narrative measures it by growth? And I went to the gym 5 days this week. If our measurement of growth is statistics, numbers, then how do we measure it when we aren't in a growth stage, when we're in a survive stage, or we're in a transformation stage?
Right. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's exactly how I ended up, or why I ended up quitting resolutions, is that, and I was trying to pinpoint what year it was exactly. I don't know if it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but I had reached a point in my life where I was going through so much with coming out as a lesbian and working through my divorce process and trying to keep a business afloat and trying to figure out what my future might look like. I struggled to make a semi-adequate dinner for my kids every night, let alone like, let me make some resolutions on top of this. Life felt so heavy and such a struggle to put one foot in front of the other that the thought of putting anything else on my plate was like, absolutely not. There's no more space for this. It's funny that everyone is using the term like quiet quitting right now, because January of whatever year that was really like me attempting to quiet quit my life. And just really figure out what the bare minimum I could do to get through the day was. And that's kind of how I broke out of resolutions and then that was also the year where I started a new habit of, instead of doing the resolutions, I was really looking for kind of hope and faith that things would get better. And so instead I was brand new to Oracle cards. They looked really pretty. I had my Rebecca Campbell deck from Hay House. And I just, one day when I didn't have the kids with me, I sat in the morning sun upstairs in my house and did some grounding work, did some meditation, laid all the cards out, and just decided I was going to do a card pull for each month and then kind of see if any messages came through. This is where I'm going to get a little woo for some people, but see if any channeled messages came through that I could journal about. And so I still have those journals from every year that I've done this. And it's just really beautiful how the year played out, being able to go back and look at those journals and look at each month. That was my way of having hope, and maybe not a goal, but I felt like, okay, well, this is where my life is heading. What can I do to align myself with that direction?
Well, I love that. And I like the image that came to my mind as you were saying that is, again, when we talk about New Year's resolutions, it seems like that people are just so excited to make like these 180-degree shifts, or these complete pivots, and just somehow figure out a way to change everything about themselves that they don't like. So New Year's resolutions, I think, really do tend to focus on what you don't like about your life or yourself. And you want to improve, whereas an intention is more about what you do like about yourself and your life. And I think that that's one thing that is important to consider. But as you were talking, I was thinking about a story that got told in my church a lot, that if a pilot sets off from his point of origin and he's heading towards a destination, but he sets his navigation system just 1 degree off, the potential he's going to end up is really far away from his destination. I think it's the same with our New Year's resolutions. What if we just set them 1 degree? What if we gave ourselves permission to just improve 1 small degree? How different does our life look at the end of the year, but the beginning doesn't feel quite so jarring to our nervous system?
I love it.
So I love that idea of doing cards, because I've never seen an oracle card or a tarot card that says, change your life right now, today, you're a failure. Nothing you do is good enough.
The card smacks the cookie out of your hand. You need to go to the gym 5 days a week.
Maybe the tower card does that a little bit, but
possibly. One of the other things I did along that line is I also have another deck of goddess cards that are, again, so beautiful, from Colette Baron Reed. And so I pull kind of a goddess energy card for each year. And last year was Aphrodite, and it was my year of love. And just to look for love in all places and attempt to be love in as many things as possible. And it was nice to have kind of that reminder. I almost feel like love almost became my word of the year, of like, that was my guiding point of, are you working towards love? Are you doing this towards love? It didn't mean that I didn't make a ton of snarky TikToks. And then Jen, my partner, would politely remind me of everything with love, Jill. Everything. Right.
Well, so this year, as you're heading into this year, what's your approach? Are you going to try to set New Year's resolutions, or you're divorcing them, quiet quitting them for 2023?
I have quiet quit the resolutions. I'm loudly quitting. I'm proclaiming via podcast to all of our listeners in Hungary and around the world that I don't know. I mean, I'm open to trying your February suggestion. I'm all about it. I do, and maybe this is just semantics, but I want to get better with goal setting, because I do like having a direction. I think that's super helpful. So can I call it goals instead of resolutions, though? Is that
You can call it whatever you want.
Flavors of cheese. Okay. Yeah. But so getting back though, I wanted to hear more about your word of the year, because again, I know a lot of people do this. And like I said, so like love for me was kind of that guiding thread of when I was doing things, when I was coming up with new projects or things I wanted to post or things I wanted to write about. Love. Okay, go back to love. What does that one word mean for you, and how do you incorporate that in your life?
So in the past, it's always been one word that kind of, I would say, grounds me into the energy that I want to put into the year. So one year, my word was flourish. And I had done some research on the word flourish. I had read Martin Seligman's book called Flourish. He's the researcher that kind of introduced positive psychology to not kind of, he did introduce positive psychology to the world. So he had written this book called Flourish. And that's kind of what I wanted. I felt like I had planted a lot of seeds in previous years, and I was ready to see those seeds blossom and flourish. But that particular year, we had a lot of challenges with our family, and like a lot, was probably our most intense year. And I got to the end and I thought, I didn't flourish at all. I didn't grow. I feel like I got more buried than that I actually grew and blossomed. And so I actually went back through all of the challenging times that we'd had, and I looked for flourish. And so I looked to see, wait, is it possible that something different than I thought had actually flourished and grown? And so that's kind of how I've always done my one little word in previous years. And for me, it usually comes from, like I said, I always do a lot of just introspection in January. I kind of hermit in January.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time on social media. And one of my reasons, I actually just posted about this on Facebook, but one of the reasons that I don't spend time on social media is because there's a lot of shame narrative in our social narrative about New Year's resolutions. That's like everybody has the same amount of time. That's one that's used all the time by people who sell like workout programs and stuff like that. And so you hear people say, everybody has the same amount of time. It's just you're not balancing your time well. And I'm going to say that somebody in trauma does not have the same amount of time that somebody with a lot of white privilege has. And I'm just going to call it white privilege. But so let me erase white. With a lot of privilege has. If you're somebody that everything is going well in your life, your 24 hours is very different than the woman who has a child that is self-harming every day, or the parent whose child has been in and out of addiction recovery. Your time is different.
The person who has to take public transportation because they don't have their own vehicle. That alone, your day takes so much longer. The person who doesn't have consistent internet at their home or regular access to cell phones or anything, like all of these things complicate their day in so many ways. And I think there's a lot of people who don't see that. So it's like, I get why they didn't make it to Whole Foods and buy all organic food.
Yeah. Or why, I mean, kind of what you said in your one year where it was like you were lucky to get the kids fed. There's been years that I've had the privilege of making 3 healthy meals a day for me and my children and my partner. I haven't had that privilege the past couple of years for a lot of reasons. It's not. But anyway, so I don't love the social narrative in January about all the things that we should be able to do, because we all have very different life experiences.
Yeah. And a wise person once told me that should equals shame. So I can't remember who I'm quoting right now.
I don't know. She's smart.
Yeah, she's so witty. I love chatting with her. Anyways.
Yeah. So I spend January in a lot of self-reflection. What worked for me last year? What didn't really work for me? What is something I don't want to change at all? Like, what is going to be my stable ground?
Like that.
Yeah. So that's like, what can I stand on that I know is working for me?
Yeah.
And what do I really feel like is something that is pretty significant that I need a change in? So for me, for 2023, one of the things I'm really pondering is in real life interaction. I'm super grateful for the people I've met virtually over 2022, but I need some in real life interaction. And so that's something that's going to really drive my one little word and the theme that I want to carry into 2023. So I think a lot of people set resolutions as these great, big, huge, go to the gym 5 days a week. Sometimes I think it's okay. Actually, not sometimes. I think it's more often than not okay to tap it out and I just want to feel healthy this year.
I
So
was
what
gonna
do
ask
I
you,
need?
yeah, does it make more sense? Is it sometimes, and looking back now at my own resolutions, this may be part of the problem. I was so specific. I'm like, I will clean every bathroom in the house on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I will work out for X number of minutes. I mean, and again, this is me coming from a background of being an accountant, and goals must be measurable and specific, but I would make them almost so specific that if I didn't meet that timeline, then it was like, we missed. And if you miss enough days, then I was unmotivated enough
Yeah.
that I just gave up. And I kind of love that you said, I just want to feel healthier. And maybe instead of going to the gym 5 days a week, I just want to move my body more, would be a
Yeah.
more realistic approach.
In 2021, my word of the year was comfort. And I had a coach say that's a bad one because you don't ever want to be comfortable. You want to always be just a little bit uncomfortable. And I was thinking about those words and I thought, so I wrote a list. I journaled. I wrote a list of all of the things in my life that felt comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Comfy, cozy socks, sweatshirts, my blanket, my pillow, my bed, waking up in the morning to see the sunrise. And as I listed all of those things, I thought, oh, I love comfort.
Me
And
too.
it's when I feel comfortable, I always put on a cozy sweatshirt before I write. When I feel comfortable in my body, I can push myself outside my comfort zone in my experience. So it turned out being a perfect word, but you can't measure comfort, but I can journal. So that's what I mean. We put all of these quantitative rules on goals and resolutions, but what if it's qualitative? What if it's the experience? So using science words, it's the essence or the experience of the phenomenon, not necessarily the phenomenon itself that
Right.
changes our lives.
Yeah, it's like a feeling based approach to
Yeah.
resolutions. How do I want to feel as opposed to what do I need to do?
Yeah.
I can do that.
So like I said, these couple of years that were challenging for our family, I got to the end every year. And had I measured it on how often I went to the gym, I would have been a failure. But if I measured it to, like one year I had written, I never would have written on my New Year's resolution lists to sit down and have a private conversation with each one of my children about their deepest fears. But when I looked back on the year, I thought, oh my gosh, I had some hard conversations with my kids and they told me things that they never would have told me a couple of years ago. They would have been way too afraid of my reaction.
Yeah.
That's something that can't be measured, but it can be counted,
Right.
if that makes sense.
I feel like that's one of those life moments where you look back and like you will remember those conversations. Your children will remember those conversations. And doesn't that matter a heck of a lot more than, oh, do you remember that week where I went to the gym 5 days? I'm not knocking the gym here for any of you CrossFit people on here who are like, I love my gym. You keep doing your gym. But if we're talking about the life moments that really like, wow, that was a hard thing, or that was a pivot point in life that I went through.
And I'm convinced as I'm reflecting this year, because there was one year that I had written, our family was saved. Like I didn't think we would make it through the year intact, and we made it through the year intact. And I really thought about that because this year I'm ending different. We weren't able to stay intact. And so I've spent a lot of time wondering if that means that I failed or my partner failed. And my husband and I actually had a conversation yesterday about Christmas. And I was thinking, as I hung up the phone, I thought, this isn't the ideal. This isn't what Norman Rockwell painted in his photos. This isn't what my church magazine put in the images of the perfect ideal family. But this is so much healthier than I could have ever imagined. Does that make sense? So even like measuring a divorce by the world standards, if I decide divorce is failure and marriage is success, then I failed. But if I look and I say, I want my partner and I to be talking kindly to one another, I want us cooperating on what's best for ourselves and for the kids, I want us to collaborate in a way that helps us both grow, well, then we're succeeding by leaps and bounds. So I think it is that experience of how do I want to feel at the end of the year versus how am I measuring success?
Yeah. And I know we're going to talk about this in a later episode, and I think it's so important, but so often we are focused on the short term and what is happening right now without maybe giving credit to the fact that, yes, this is hard, and yes, this is not ideal, or this is not maybe necessarily what I planned for right now, for what I wanted my holidays to look like right now. But you can also know that you're on the right path for the direction that you want to head in life. And there's so much to be said for that. And how do you measure that in a a resolution. And again, I think it goes back to how do you want to feel? And if you can feel good in knowing that you're taking the next right steps or what feels truest to you. I mean, there's so much value in that.
That's why I actually am reframing my one little word this year, because I was thinking about, so I went back, I've got record of all of those one little words I've kept. I know what every single one of them has been, but when I was looking at them, the one thing that I noticed, and it's the trend I started seeing on Facebook, everybody is posting about their one little word right now, and everybody chooses growth words. When we look at our lives, we always think that we need to grow or expand or get better or improve, like all those types of things.
New year, new you.
Yeah, but there is nothing about nature. There is no natural element that always only grows. There's nothing, no pattern in God's creations that only grows, that never has a season of rest or retraction or pause. So why do we as humans think that we are only expansive beings? That doesn't make sense to my brain. So especially after the past couple of years, it does not make sense to my brain that we only push ourselves to grow. So this year, like I said, I'm allowing myself to understand that the pendulum swings both ways, that if I want to expand, I also need to learn how to retract. If I'm going to grow, I also need to learn how to be still. So going back to flourish, if I'm always only looking for where I'm flourishing in the moment, it's very easy for me to think that the darkness is bad. And so then, like you were saying, then you start judging yourself. I think people fail on their New Year's resolutions, or they get abandoned because they don't show up one day, and they judge themselves so harshly for not going to the gym that they forget to give themselves credit for. But I had pneumonia.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Or just needed rest.
Yeah.
Everything hurt.
Yeah.
My muscles needed recovery.
And I'm with you. I love the gym. The gym has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. But I'll be honest, my weight does not vary based on how often I go to the gym. That is not actually the determinant for my health, my weight, or my clothes size. So why do I put pressure on the gym? Well, and why am I going? Am I just going to judge myself and criticize myself? So I don't know. So for me, I'm excited to see how this pendulum swings for me, and giving myself permission to consider the dark days just as beautiful as the light days.
I love that. And so for all our little plant seedling listeners out there going into this new year, I love that connection to nature that you made, and also just highlighting how important contrast is, and so that it's not failing. We are getting contrast there, and you need that, because it can't be all good or all winning all the time. And sometimes the wins, I guess, feel so much richer when you're not always winning, and then you do get one and you are like, wow, that was incredible.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the best thing for people to do, that my challenge actually to our listeners would be to really catch your shoulds, knowing that someone out there once said that should is equal to shame.
Yeah.
Catch the places where you self-blame, like I can't go to the gym because I don't sleep well, or I can't go to the gym because I don't like. Wherever you self-blame yourself, watch for those. And then wherever you place yourself in a lot of guilt, I'm a bad person because I don't go to the gym. I don't have any self-control, and that's why I still eat sugar. Like, catch yourself on those thoughts of shame, blame, and self-guilt. And if you can catch those things happening in your mind or in your words, especially in your words, and especially in January where everybody's talking about New Year's resolutions, like catch those words and give yourself permission to pause and realize that if those things are coming out of your mind, there's a good chance that your resolutions or your goals are off track for what's best for you.
All right, Q Crew. Well, it's January, so that means it's time for us to hermit out of here. Thanks so much for listening. And thank you, Treisha, for sharing this awesome take on how to start our 2023.
Woohoo! Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Life and Love in the Q. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And if you have questions, contact us at lifeandloveintheq@gmail.com. Until next time, Q Crew.